Welcome to today's Explainer. We are embarking on a truly incredible journey right now. We're going to transition from the macroscopic world we see all around us every single day, the trees, the plants, the everyday greenery, and we're going to zoom all the way down into the microscopic food factories that literally keep us and our entire planet alive. We're uncovering the secret life of leaves. It is a fascinating story of biology, high-tech manufacturing, and global survival. And the crazy part? It all happens on a scale so small it's completely invisible to the naked eye.
So, first things first, let's start with the most fundamental question about our daily survival, something we completely take for granted every single time we sit down for a meal. Why do we even have to eat? And knowing that animals, humans included, can't just magically conjure up a meal out of thin air, where do we ultimately get our food from? I mean, it seems like a beautifully simple question, doesn't it? But the answer actually unlocks the basic mechanics of how life on Earth is sustained. Well, it's not just about stopping a rumbling stomach. It's all about fuel. The energy from the food we consume is actively utilized by our bodies to carry out literally every single vital function. We're talking about the heavy lifting of digestion, the constant steady rhythm of respiration, and of course, excretion. Every breath you take, every move you make, it completely relies on this energy. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Animals cannot make this food themselves. We are 100% dependent on getting it from plants or from other animals that have eaten plants.
To really understand where this food ultimately comes from, we have to look much, much closer. Let's rewind the clock back to a monumental moment in 1665. A scientist named Robert Hooke is peering through a microscope at an incredibly thin sliver of cork, and what he found was just astonishing. He noticed this rigid, repeating structure that beautifully resembled a honeycomb. He identified these many small compartments, and by doing so, he gave us the foundational concept of the cell. He realized that all living bodies, at their very core, are built out of these tiny fundamental building blocks.
So, welcome to the cell factory. Seriously, the best way to understand a cell isn't as a static little bubble, but as a highly organized, bustling manufacturing plant. Every living thing is made of cells, and inside them, it's not just empty space. Actually, scratch that. It is a packed space filled with specialized worker constituents called organelles. Every single organelle has a very specific structure and a highly specific job to do to keep the entire organism functioning, growing, and reproducing.
Every factory needs a strict chain of command, right? First up, we have the cell membrane. This is a thin, flexible outer covering that acts as the factory's ultimate security layer. It protects the inner workings and tightly regulates the flow of whatever is trying to get in or out of the cell. Then you've got the nucleus. Think of this as the boss's office. It sits right there in the cell, controlling all the functions and processes. Plus, it crucially holds the chromosomes, the DNA, which are essentially the master blueprints for life.
Now, all this intricate machinery, it has to sit somewhere, right? It can't just float around in a vacuum. That somewhere is the cytoplasm. Imagine the cytoplasm as the semi-fluid factory floor. It is perfectly designed to accommodate all these various organelles, giving them a physical medium to exist in while also carefully controlling their movements and interactions. It is the buzzing, dynamic environment where the daily microscopic grind actually takes place.
But you can't run a massive manufacturing plant in the dark. You absolutely need a reliable source of power. Enter the mitochondria. These are tubular, double-walled organelles with these very distinct folds on the inside. You've probably heard them called the powerhouse of the cell, and for good reason. Their specific job is to take raw food material and churn out the actual, usable energy that fuels all those biological processes we just talked about, like respiration and growth.
Okay, here's where things get really fascinating. Because spotting the differences between animal and plant cells is exactly where we uncover the secret to life on Earth. While we share a lot of the same basic machinery, like the nucleus and the membrane, we diverge in some game-changing ways. Take the cell wall. Animal cells don't have an extra covering, but plant cells have a thick wall surrounding their membrane. Then there are vacuoles, the storage spaces. Tiny in us, massively large in plants. And finally, the ultimate difference, the presence of chlorophyll.
Let's talk about that wall for a second. Without a skeleton to hold them upright, plants basically have to build themselves a cell fortress. So they have this exclusive outer cell wall made of a super tough material called cellulose. This wall surrounds the cell membrane and gives the plant cell this incredible structural strength, while also providing heavy-duty protection for those delicate inner components. I mean, this is literally the structural engineering that allows a redwood tree to shoot hundreds of feet into the sky. But the architecture is just the start. The internal chemistry is where the true magic lies. This brings us to the big reveal. Unlike our own animal cells, plant cells contain these specialized plastids known as chloroplasts. And within these chloroplasts, we find a unique, entirely game-changing substance. It is the sole reason why leaves are green, and it is completely missing from human and animal biology. That substance is chlorophyll. And this chlorophyll, it is not just a pretty color. Housed safely inside the chloroplasts, it acts as the actual biological machinery that allows plants to do what we fundamentally cannot. Chlorophyll is an essential green pigment that equips the plant cell to operate as a completely self-sustaining, microscopic food factory. Because they possess this pigment, plants don't need to hunt and they don't need to forage. They manufacture their own nutrition internally, right there inside the leaf.
And the process they use to pull off this absolute miracle is called photosynthesis. This is the ultimate, hyper-efficient, solar-powered manufacturing process. Thanks to chlorophyll, green plants can literally capture energy from sunlight and use it to synthesize their own food. But to do this, they critically require one specific ingredient from the environment around them: carbon dioxide. They pull in the carbon dioxide that we exhale, they mix it with water from their roots, and they create life-sustaining food.
So let's zoom all the way back out from that microscopic cell to the macro level. It becomes terrifyingly clear just how deeply our fate is tied to these tiny food factories. It's a chain reaction. Plants need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. If we have fewer trees, say from deforestation, it means less carbon dioxide is being used up by these cellular factories. That leaves an excess of carbon dioxide just lingering in our atmosphere. And because carbon dioxide traps the sun's heat rays, that excess leads directly to global warming, disturbed water cycles, and severe climate change.
I want to leave you with one final, awe-inspiring thought as we wrap up our explainer today. How wild is it that the microscopic machinery inside a single, fragile green leaf holds the absolute power to sustain every living, breathing creature on our globe? From Robert Hooke's honeycomber cells to the solar-powered factory floor of the chloroplast, the secret of survival isn't found in massive, towering machines. It's found in the microscopic, invisible balance of photosynthesis. The next time you walk past a green leaf, just remember, you are looking at the tiny factory that keeps the whole world breathing. Thanks for hanging out with me for this deep dive. Keep exploring and keep learning.